Well, welcome to the Helping Families Be Happy podcast, where we explore the often messy world of family love and relationships. I'm your host for this podcast, Christopher Robbins, the co-founder of Familius Publishing, husband, father of 9, author, fly fisherman, and outdoor enthusiast living in the beautiful Central Valley of California. We hope to bring you nourishing, real-life information about love, family, relationships, and life. Now, I'm excited to introduce today's guest, Ericka Sanchez. Now, Ericka is a Mexican-born recipe developer, food stylist, and food photographer, best known as the creator of the award-winning website Nibbles and Feasts. She was born in Torreon, Coahuila, Mexico, and immigrated with her family to El Paso, Texas at the age of 8. Her work is deeply inspired by her bicultural life and her cherished memories of cooking with her grandmother and mother in Mexico. She started Nibbles and Feasts in 2010 as a way to catalog family recipes and has since expanded it to include her own twists on traditional Mexican cuisine. She is the author of 4 cookbooks, Aguas Frescas and Paletas, Buen Provecho, Buenos Dias, and Spicy Salsas and Moles. Her recipes, food styling, and photography have been featured in a variety of print and online publications, including Oprah Daily, Parents Latina, Taste of Home, and Eating Well. She is also the host of her own cooking series, Ericka's Mexican Cocina, on the Recipe TV network. Now, prior to her career in food media, Ericka had a 20-year background in marketing and social media with experience in sports marketing, retail property management, and community management. She currently lives in Orange County, California, with her husband and son. Now, personally, for 2 years during the 1980s, I lived and worked among our Hispanic friends and neighbors. I learned their language, was welcomed into their homes, and was introduced to many of their wonderful traditions, most importantly, food, and the central place it plays in a loving Hispanic family. Today, we're celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month and the wonderful opportunities to broaden our cultural horizons. The information shared aligns with the Familius 10 Habits of Happy Families: learn, love, eat, and play together. You can learn more about the Familius 10 Habits of Happy Families by going to the Habit Hub blog on familius.com. For the video of this podcast, please go to the Familius YouTube channel. Bienvenidos, Ericka. Thank you for joining us.
Muchas gracias. Thank you, Christopher. I'm so happy to be here. Finally get to talk to you.
Yeah, you bet. Now, your blog is called Nibbles and Feasts. Can you tell us a little bit of the story about that name and how it reflects your own approach to Mexican food?
Well, at first, it actually didn't, because it was at the beginning of the mommy bloggers, and it was an outlet for me when my son was born. So I was documenting just recipes of, of people. I'm just putting recipes on here. So I just started, from one spectrum to the other. So Nibbles, it originally was Nibbles, Feasts, and Cravings or something like that. But I shortened it to Nibbles and Feast. And that's when it just started. It just snowballed from there. I started getting approached by different companies asking for, my type of recipes that are, Latin inspired. And it just started from there. The name just came just to overall have just a group of it covers all types of recipes at the beginning, and then it just slowly started diverting into the Mexican side of it.
It found its way into your culture.
Yeah, I wanted to just have something for my son when he grew up at the time, when he was a baby at the time, and when he grew up I just wanted to have everything there for him. Just go to the blog and find out how to make tortillas or how to make your favorite soup. So that was my idea. There was no business idea behind it. It was just more of just having a recipe catalog for my family.
Well, it's always fun to do something you love and then have it turn into a successful business. So well done. Now, you mentioned that your cooking is inspired by your grandmother and your mother's kitchens in Mexico's. Could you share any specific memory or beloved family recipe that sparked your passion for cooking and preserving these traditions?
Sure. My grandmother, I would visit my grandmother in the summers. when I moved to the United States. So I would go back in the summers, and I don't know how I would travel alone on the bus and just head over to my grandmother, and she would have a store. She had like a little bodega type store. And she would cook. She would make food and sell it at her store. And I would help. And I loved, just measuring the rice and putting together these dishes in aguas frescas. And one in particular, I loved her breaded fish. That every time I see breaded fish, I'd always think of her. And that's she would always make that, and that was her specialty. And it was just the seasoning, what she would put in there. But that was her special recipe that I've always reminds me of her.
That's wonderful. Our grandmothers are can be such forces in our life in terms of the direction that we go. So thanks for sharing that. Now, beyond cooking, what other Hispanic traditions or cultural practices are important to you and your family?
Sure. Every year, I mean, of course, we always celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month in my house. It's an everyday thing. But one that's really special that it actually, I used to celebrate it when I was a child, and then it kind of stopped, and now we're back into it. It was Dia de los Muertos.
Mm.
Now we set up an altar, we do everything, we get fresh flowers, we set up the photos and the food, and that's where the food gets involved as well. And my son gets involved. That was the whole idea of getting back into our roots. And definitely Dia de los Muertos is a big one for us.
Mm. Yes, we love Dia de los Muertos.
Mhm.
That is a really fun tradition.
Yeah.
And important. I'll tell you, I drive by a cemetery frequently where I live in the Central Valley of California, and this cemetery is lit up like no cemetery I've ever seen. It's always full of flowers and bright lights. How wonderful it is that our Hispanic friends always remember those who have passed away. It's
Yeah.
so meaningful,
Yeah.
roots and branches there. Okay, now here's kind of something funny. Let me ask you. So if you could have a dream dinner party with
Okay.
any three Hispanic figures, whether living or historical, who would they be and what would you cook for them?
Okay. Definitely I'm gonna go with the cooking part first. I'll definitely make a nice big mole with just the mole spread with rice and beans and a nice, flan for dessert. But definitely a very traditional mole. Those that take 30 hours, that would be on the menu. And the figures, it would definitely be my grandmother. I would want to talk to her, again. And then the president of Mexico, Claudia Shane, she would be a good one. And the third one I'm struggling with, but I would want somebody that's very cultural, and I'm I'm gonna go with Frida Kahlo just to complete the
I
complete the whole,
I was thinking you were going to go
yeah,
with Frida.
yeah. Just,
Might
the
dominate the conversation, but I think your grandmother could hold her own.
yeah, definitely.
So a wonderful mole. Okay, that sounds delicious. And when you have that, please invite me.
Definitely will.
Now, let's talk about your own pantry. Um, what's a pantry staple that in your kitchen that you just can't live without? And what's the one ingredient that you're always experimenting with?
Definitely dried chiles.
Mm.
The spicy ones and the not so spicy ones, but they're always in my pantry. It's a great way to just add flavor to anything, a stew, a soup. Um, it's, just hydrating them and then just blending and adding it to whatever you're cooking, a sauce or a salsa. It just brings it, just gives it that extra punch. And what was this? So what was the second question?
What can't your pantry live without? And is there an ingredient that you're constantly just playing around with?
Ingredient that I'm constantly playing around with. Gosh, I cook so much that I play around so much. Definitely cilantro is a pantry staple as well, but I'm incorporating it more into sauces and broths, not just as a garnish. It would be part of like the blend.
So I hear that there are people who when they eat cilantro, it tastes like soap to them.
Yeah.
I love cilantro.
So I feel bad for those people.
It is so delicious. Okay, now before we close, I'd love to hear what advice you would give someone who wants to learn more about Mexican cuisine, Mexican culture, and starting to incorporate some of these traditions and some of these flavors into their own home and their own cooking.
Well, for example, there's if you want to experiment with Mexican ingredients, go with your own first. For example, if there's a cheese that you might want to try, ask the cheesemonger and say, what is a familiar taste like this cheese? And if, for example, if it's a cotija cheese, the cheesemonger will say, well, try feta first and see how the flavor is similar. It's a little bit more pungent, but the saltiness is there. So I would suggest getting familiar with your ingredients first and then asking questions at the store, and then just go for it. You can't you have to experiment and find out how it's used. For example, like the chiles I mentioned, um, you can always add it to something, whether it's fresh or whether it's dry. But definitely ask questions and figure out the flavor profiles of each ingredient and something that's familiar to you as well.
Right. That's great. No, I can tell you that one of my favorite breakfasts, I take two eggs, crack them,
Mhm,
I cook them over easy,
mhm.
and then I season them with some Mexican seasoning, and then I cut avocados and I put them over the top with a little bit of pico de gallo over the top of that, and then I take that cotija cheese and sprinkle
Right?
that. Oh, that is the
Yeah.
best way to start a breakfast. In fact, let's talk about breakfast. You have a book called Buenos Dias, and it's filled with just wonderful Mexican breakfast. Why is breakfast such a big deal in the Hispanic culture?
You know, um, we always eat breakfast. Even if it's a Wednesday morning, we sit and we eat breakfast, and we eat big breakfast. The rest of the day we don't have to eat anything for the rest of the day, but we have to have a really good breakfast. And we got used to that. I even in when I was growing up, we had a breakfast, and it was always a time we sit there, we talk about the day, we gossip, and it's a way to bring together people in the morning. And I know right now there's people are so busy, and the hustle and bustle of the day, and people have school and work, but we always try to have at least something, a conversation, even if it's just toast and butter. We'll sit there and we'll talk, just what's going on with your day. It's just a way of bringing everybody together and talking about our day.
So we've been talking with Ericka Sanchez, who's the author of Aguas Frescas and Paletas, Buen Provecho, Buenos Dias, and Spicy Salsas and Moles. Now, Ericka, I don't want to tip our hand, but I do believe that you have a couple of cookbooks that will be coming out over the next 3 to 4 years, 2 to 4 years, I should say.
All right.
What are those? And give us a brief description.
Well, the next one I'm deep into tacos. So it's all about tacos, all kinds of tacos, and I'm actually gonna work on some today. But I'm about halfway, a little bit more than halfway done with that one. And then a couple of years after that, I really we want to dive into just the essentials of Mexican cooking, just the basics, what everybody should know, how to get you started, how to get you familiar with it. And I'm seeing, uh, I guess I would say the demographic, because he's gonna be graduating this, taking the book with him to college would be great.
Yeah.
Taking the book to college would be great, and it would be like just a guide for him to follow, something, I believe every person that's trying to connect back with the roots should have.
Yeah, sounds wonderful. And I've been calling it mastering the art of Mexican cooking. We'll see what it ends up being, but that will be a gift to all of us. So thank you for working so much on that. Now, Ericka, where it's always fantastic to speak with you. We're so grateful for your time. Where can our guests find you online?
You can find me at nibblesandfeasts.com. And I have all the socials under that name as well. Nibbles and then the letter N, Feasts. Uh, um, that's my profile name. And I share with, sampling food, or I'll share it all in my channels.
Great. Thank you. Gracias. Well, as we conclude today's podcast, I'd like to thank Familias for its support in bringing the podcast to your ears and your heart. We'd be thrilled if you subscribed to the podcast and left us a review. And when you're ready for that next amazing book adventure, we'd be honored if you chose a book from Familias, one step at a time, one dinner, one delicioso cena at a time. We can make the world a happier place.